come away with this, but this has been such a crazy game that I actually don't really know how to call it just yet. But yeah, by the looks of things, the presence of these medevacs and stim is actually going to force an end to that game, and that was just ridiculous. That was just ridiculous, fellas, but that was actually pretty entertaining. All right, the key moment, I think, as much as I love the way that Hero utilizes warp prisms, I think he overextended a bit with that Colossus. Having that Colossus with that ground army would have done a lot into help bolstering it. So here we have the single Colossus, and again, this is the sort of thing that Hero does a lot. He likes to utilize this single Colossus with this Warp Prism, and if you've ever played level 30 of the StarCraft Masters mod that Blizzard made, you know that if you pick this unit back up into the Warp Prism, you can effectively deny things like Marauder shots and that sort of thing. But fortunately, Marine King had Vikings out on the field, and without Warp Prism speed, Vikings can actually catch this Warp Prism, which is pretty much what happens. Alright, now this Colossus doesn't really do very much damage at all to Marine King's base. He manages to kill a few bio units and an SCV, but I mean, look at this. Now, I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the next battle. Okay, so right now, the battle, the way that it's shaping up right now, we have 8 Marauders, 5 Marines, 2 Vikings versus 6 Stalkers, 5 Sentries, and 6 Zealots. Now, the thing is, Marine King lost, or not Marine King, Hero lost a single Colossus and a Warp Prism in that last fight. Which, now the Warp Prism would have served 2 purposes here. First, it would have, if he hadn't lost that Warp Prism, he would have had the Colossus available in this battle. But the second thing is that that Warp Prism would have allowed him to reinforce units over here. Now the one thing though is that if you'll notice the way that this battle actually goes, Hero actually does not have a reinforcing pylon here. He has to come over here and build it. Had he not lost that Warp Prism, he would have been able to utilize the Warp Prism to actually reinforce from, and he barely loses this fight. Marine King is forced to pull SCVs, and he's basically just holding out long enough to get these medevacs out. Now, he has to bring this pylon over here. Look at the pylon just goes down now, and the battle's already over. Had that Warp Prism been on the field, Hero could have reinforced that fight with additional Zealots, and additional Zealots would have been a huge boon, especially since Marine King was forced to pull his SCVs. And that might have allowed him to come away with that victory. Now, the Colossus was still very, very damaged from the initial attack, so the Vikings probably would have been able to bring it down very quickly anyway. But at this low supply count, every little bit would have helped. So that's my analysis for the end of this game, but that was just a very, very crazy, very, very ridiculous one-base game by these two masters of their respective races. I'm glad I got to cast that. I will be back in a moment with more StarCraft 2 action today. This is KT Vindicare.